in the country.
Over the past year, he was moved to a desk job. However, people say, why was he kept on the payroll? This is an issue for the police commissioner.
I agree.
This is a police thug. And they think they got the power of God over us. And
it's a sad state. We're becoming a police state, and it's unfortunately affecting the minority community in the worst way. And this is the thing, and is apparently that's just the tragic part of it. And again, it's not only Chicago, but it's around the country. Rudy, I appreciate it, my friend.
Their police union is responsible for this. They should do something about people like this in their membership.
I agree. That's why it's time to flush out the bad and bring in new people who have a attitude, who have an understanding of the community. Need to move, with a quickness that we have not seen with police departments. To start firing individuals, and I know that unions, which are generally good, but in terms of police reform, there's been a lot of corruption there, and that needs to be cleaned up too. They need to figure out a way to bring in new police officers, particularly folks who are tied to the community, the African-American, Latino communities. And if they can't do that, then we're going to have this issue day in and day out, and there are going to be more problems in this country that needlessly could be taken care of with some good measure of reform inside these police departments. Okay, with that, let's go to Seattle and talk to our good friend Mark Taylor-Canfield. Mark, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Jeff. Welcome back. Everybody listen to Future Tuesdays on the Jeff Santos Show. Good to hear you again.
Oh, thank you. We'll get to that in a second, but I know that there are police issues that are emanating in these days in Seattle, not to the violent situation that happened in Chicago, but a teacher was, speaking of Teacher Tuesday, was pepper sprayed by a police officer. What's that all about?
Yes, a local school teacher from Garfield High School, Jessie Hagopian, whose mother actually served on the Seattle School Board. He's a major activist in Seattle on issues about education funding and other civil rights issues. Well, he was pepper sprayed by Officer Sandra Delfuente after the Martin Luther King Jr. Day march in Seattle this year. And the officer was disciplined, but then the disciplinary panel on the Office of Professional Accountability and an interdisciplinary panel downgraded that discipline to a mere oral reprimand. So Jessie
2 minutes.
went public, did a press conference, and said that he doesn't agree with Police Chief Kathleen O'Toole's stepping down this to an oral reprimand. And he also pointed out that the Seattle Police Chief actually supports an ordinance developed by the Community Police Commission, which is currently being considered by a federal judge, which would oversee this consent decree that Seattle Police Department currently has with the US Department of Justice. And this new law would close the loophole that actually allowed Police Chief O'Toole to make this disciplinary decision without even being required to notify elected officials. In fact, when the information first came out, the officer's name wasn't even mentioned. So it's an ongoing issue. I've reported before in your program about how the
1 minute.
Seattle Police Department was reviewed by the Department of Justice for an 8-month review and found a practice and policy of the use of excessive force. And then, of course, there was the famous case of 85-year-old Occupy Wall Street activist Dorley Rainey, who was pepper sprayed by Seattle police. And at that time, the mayor, Mike McGinn, had to give a public apology to her for that incident. So
We'll come back.
Going on in Seattle.
Yeah, we'll come back and talk more about what's going on in Seattle.
The astonishing health benefits of the multi-patented One Silver solution
Boost your immune system at a great price with our Silver Solution Liquid, starting at $12.95 a bottle. Now available in regular and extra strength. That's half the price of the leading competitors. Call 844-USILVER for your free catalog or go to onesilversolution.com. Onesilversolution.com. There is only one Silver Solution. Live in beautiful downtown Boston, this is the Jeff Santos Show.
Welcome back. It is indeed the Jeff Santos Show. 844-3-SANTOS, the phone number to join us. Talking with Mark Taylor-Canfield, our great friend from Seattle and Puget Sound, and covering the Pacific Northwest for us, great independent journalist based in Seattle. Mark, talk to me about what the latest is on the teachers and the students that are getting jam-packed between the Republican initiative that was passed that requires a whole bunch of Democrats to actually pass any sort of funding law that increases education. Give me your thoughts on that and what is happening to those students in some of these small towns and the teachers as well.
Well, it's not just the small towns, Jeff. And Alki Elementary School in Seattle, the public school district was forced to start a crowdfunding page to do a fundraising drive in order to keep a teacher who had been there for a long time because of a funding crisis. So, thanks to
crowdfunding for public schools.
Yes, and I'll explain how this happened, but Brian Jones is a local community member. He has children who don't even go to Alki Elementary School, but he made a public statement that the lack of funding for education has to end, and it starts with our state legislature, who's dropped the ball. It's the direct quote from a blog posting in the West Seattle blog. We need to come together as families and support the most important needs of our children, education. So what he did was he donated $70,000 of his own money to a school district where his children don't even attend. So that was his protest. It was an attempt to shame our state legislators into getting together and solving this funding crisis. And the reason that we're in such dire straits here is because, well, several reasons, but everyone should know that the Washington State Supreme Court has found our Washington State legislature in contempt of court. The state Supreme Court is fining the Washington State legislature $100,000 per day for violating our own state constitution, which requires the legislature to provide adequate funding for education in the state for public education. Well, according to the courts and according, of course, to the teachers who actually held rolling strikes this year to highlight this issue, the state is not adequately funding public education. And part of that problem is, yes, there's a very infamous neoconservative paid initiative campaigner here in Washington State. His name is Tim Eyman, and he's been successful. He's also successful right now. The state, on a statewide level, although it didn't really get much support in the Seattle area, the state voters have passed another one of his initiatives, which he backed, which requires that the state legislature change the state constitution to allow his other initiative, which has been accused of being unconstitutional, to be a part of our state constitution. And what the other initiative, which already passed, does is it requires a 3/4 vote by our state legislators on creating any new revenue for the state. So we've had several major financial crises here during the height of the Occupy Wall Street movement. Actually, back in 2011, the state was suffering from a $3 billion budget deficit. So programs were being cut left and right, and of course, education is a state-funded program. So at the moment, Governor Jay Inslee and the state legislators, the Democrats and the Republicans, just haven't been able to get together on how to solve this problem. The state Supreme Court recommended that there be a special session called to address this issue, and the governor and the state legislators on their own website, it's saying that they've been telling the state, they're telling the governor and the legislature for a long time that relying on school district levies in order to fund public education in Washington State is simply unconstitutional because it doesn't adequately fund education in the state. It actually causes a lot of education inequality because of the difference between, small towns who don't have a lot of big property owners and a city like Seattle can collect a lot of property taxes. Also, in some communities, the levies are just voted down because the people in the community either don't have a lot of children in school or are really anti-tax folks who just really don't want to pay any more property tax.
Let me ask you, Mark, is this also how Oregon does it? Is it a West Coast thing? Is Idaho? Is this how it's done? Because I know in a lot of the East Coast, it's, there's a lot of property taxes that fund education and other resources. Is that just unique? And was it always that way in Washington State? Your knowledge?
It's not the only state that funds education in that way, but it's not. It's just, let's just put it this way, it's been proven to be inadequate, so most states are not going to follow this model. It's just, in other words, there is no statewide funding education program in Washington State. It's all based on your local school district and whether your levy passed, and then each district has to put a levy on the ballot in order to fund, much like funding the local fire department or the police department, they have to pass a levy that the local voters approve. In the rest of the country, anywhere that this model has been used, it hasn't worked. In Washington State, it's been really damaging to the entire education structure. And it's so sad, Jeff, for a city that's known as being, per capita, one of the most educated places in the country, supplying, private and public institutions. Unfortunately, the public school system is broken. And if, even the superintendent of public instruction saying that, the Washington State Supreme Court is saying that it's actually unconstitutional, the way that the levies are passed. The Democrats and the Republicans have got to get together in the state legislature, and they have to do it now. It's not something that the voters are going to forget. This is a shameful mark on the reputation of our state. And so in January, if the governor doesn't call a special session, and it doesn't look like he's going to, then they are going to have to get at it right away and come up with some solution. And the political, bickering between the Democrats and the Republicans on how to do this has got to come to an end. They're going to have to come to an agreement. The teachers are just going to end up going on strike again if they don't.
Well, we'll continue to follow this story. All the best, and a great Thanksgiving to you and your family, Mark, as well. Great story to follow, and you've been doing some great pieces on it as well. All the best, my friend. We'll talk to you next Tuesday.
Happy Thanksgiving, Jeff. Folks can follow me on Twitter and Facebook. We'll see you next week. Oh, actually, yes, we will. Next
Tuesday. Have a great Thanksgiving, sir. It's the Jeff Santos Show. Back in a flash.
Are you tired of commuting to a job that makes someone else rich, working harder than ever, but getting nowhere? Do you hate spending hundreds of dollars every week on daycare, having someone else raise your children? With our opportunities, you can start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss, work from home, and live a happier life. At Be the Boss Network,